Welcome back to Brazos in 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to Brazos Valley Voices, everyone. This is part 2 of our series with Calvin Boykin, U.S. Army. Just a few days before Calvin Boykin passed away in October of 2008, his daughter called me and asked me if I would come over and visit with Calvin again. Calvin wasn't well, and I did. And we sat down and we visited some more. Some about the same things that we had visited about just a couple of years earlier. But Calvin wanted to talk one more time, and I was more than honored to sit next to him and hear some of the same stories and some of the new reflections of Calvin Boykin. This conversation happened in October of 2008, just a couple of days, actually, before Calvin Boykin passed away. Thank you for your service again, Calvin Boykin. Here's our conversation from October of 2008.
And I was kind of out of it for a while. These girls kind of helped me out a little bit.
Girls are good like that, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen you in a while. You've had a rough go, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of got after me there, quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No, I just drink it straight. I just drink it straight.
There you go. Daddy, would you like some iced tea?
I'll take some.
Little tea. Do you want some lime in it or anything?
Yeah. Okay.
So you're watching all this good news and bad news and back and forth, and I heard the stock market was way up today. That's good. Well, I tell you what, I sure do. Every once in a while, I'll go back and I'll watch some of the veteran shows that I did, and
I've seen
yours is still one of my favorites.
I watched it. Yeah.
You were the first, I think you were the first one that I did a double episode on.
Okay, that's what I
I think you were the first one that I said, I can't tell that guy's story in 30 minutes. Can't really tell it in an hour, but we'll just have to do our best, to tell it in an hour.
Well, I really appreciate all you've done.
Well, it's people tell me that, and I appreciate it when they tell me that. I really do, because I understand what they're saying, and I understand them. Having the people are basically nice people, and I understand them wanting to show appreciation, to me. And I know it sounds like a bunch of hooey, but genuinely, it's like the same thing that Ann does. Genuinely, the pleasure is mine. I mean, I get so much out of it.
I know exactly what you're saying, because I get wrapped up in the stories. I want to, tell me the story. I want to hear the story.
Right.
It's more that than it is anything else.
I mean, there's the work that's involved, and it's like for every veteran show that I do, it's the only really work involved is typing out the notes. That's a little labor intensive, I guess, and
the bookkeeping part,
and taking the bookkeeping in hard. I just send a bill to KAMU every month, and they pay me a little bit to do this for my time, but don't tell them. But I would do it for free. But don't tell them that, okay? Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I just got an email from Mike Guidry.
Yeah. You and Mike are buddies. Mike and Audrey and my wife and I have become really good friends.
Well, they are such a neat couple.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound so funny. I picked him up at the Bush Library the 10th anniversary. We happened to be standing next to each other, waiting, for the parachute drop.
Right.
And he was in uniform, and I just struck up a conversation with him, and gosh, he's just such a
Was
nice
this before he'd gone to Iraq?
No, he had just come
He
back.
just got back, okay. Yeah.
This was about a year ago.
From Fallujah.
Oh, okay.
All right.
But he's all fired up. He wants to do a table with information about Veterans of the Valley and have a
Right.
VCR running and
Yeah, we talked.
that'd be great.
I saw him Saturday. Actually, I saw him today. I dropped off a DVD of his show that I did with him, and but I saw him Saturday. Actually, we took him out. We took him to the Longhorn on Friday night, so we spent some time together this weekend. And yeah, he said that, and I told him I've got some of the earlier shows on a VHS tape, like 6-hour VHS tape that has 7 or 8 shows on it, to where he can just slip it in and not have to worry about it for 3 or 4 hours or something like that.
Perfect.
And then and I've got about 5 or 6 of those, so it all lasts you all day long.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Here, you want to put this?
Yeah, hang on a second, Daddy.
I think
Is it?
hold it.
I know it's kind of awkward there. There you go.
But I really, and I've interviewed about, the last time I counted, I'm over 100 now. I'm about 105, 106, something like that.
Wow.
Well, I know that I know Bill Youngkin is getting close to 200, I think, or
Right,
something
and
like
I think
that.
we don't have all of his scanned in.
Well, you've got a lot of them,
We're
because as a
close.
matter of fact, that helps me every week, because
Does it?
I'm having trouble. I'm not having trouble finding the World War II vets, but I'm having more trouble getting them to agree to come on.
Oh.
Not because they don't want to tell their story, but they just don't think that they're up to it. And I, and like yesterday, I called. Who did I call yesterday? It was one that, because I got it from your website.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why the Eagle doesn't archive those stories, but they don't. But thanks to you, there are some of them that you have scanned in.
Yeah, and we have a backlog because my office has been out of commission now for about the last 3 or 4 months. So Colleen Reisinger is one of my volunteers. She's Daddy's age, and she has all of them, not all of them, but she has the ones she hasn't scanned in yet in a folder.
Yeah.
So, and it's going to be a while before I get back to doing that. So I'll send you her number, and you can just call her, and she'll tell you who she has, or let you take a look at.
Yeah. Well, I've called Bill, and Bill's his secretary or whoever has given me some, but being able to go to the website and see the ones that you've scanned in. Matter of fact, the one that I'm taping this week, I got from your website from one of those scans. His name is Chadbourne.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Chadbourne, Joe Chadbourne, I believe.
Maybe right.
I think that's his name.
Now, who was it you said you called that didn't want to go on? I wonder who that was.
He lived over near me. Who was? I just called him yesterday. I'm not remembering right now what his last name was. But I get a lot of those. There's a difference between talking to Bill, just sitting down for a newspaper article, and and being on the TV and all of that.
Well, what I find too is that, and I've noticed this with Daddy, I'm trying to remember who was over here. Who came over to visit with you, Daddy, and the two of you went in the living room to visit? Oh, it was Jim Woodall.
Oh, yeah.
And Karen had not been here before when Daddy was visiting with another war buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Had been in the war, not necessarily served together. And the conversation's totally different. You put the two together, and I've done that a couple of times with Project Hold, where these two guys will be sitting together, and they've got a few pictures or a book or something, and they'll go off, and you just can't shut them up. And the language is different, the phrasing is different, the stories are definitely different.
Yeah.
And it was that afternoon when
I just remembered his name, Brucey.
Okay,
Brucey.
I know that name, but I don't know.
Brusse. That was who I called yesterday.
Yeah.
He was very nice about it. He just said that he just didn't think.
But Daddy and Jim were talking, and Daddy was talking about. You remember mentioning that you never came home from the war with nightmares. That you always expected you would have nightmares about the war, but what was the rest of the story that you told him?
Well, we were at the same time in the let's see, it was I'm trying to think.
In the Hurtgen Forest?
No, Jim and I were not at the same. Jim was more the. Anyway, I was more in the World War II. He was more
Right.
the
Korea?
Vietnam.
Oh, Vietnam. Okay.
Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And Korea.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he was Korea, pretty much.
Right.
And
Now Jim lives over. Does he live off of Deacon or off of Rio Grande
I think
in that
so,
subdivision?
yes, yes.
Well, I had him on the show.
Right.
But it wasn't. That was a year ago
That
when
was
I was out of
Kyle.
commission when Kyle did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that'll be repeated here real soon.
Oh, good.
Because right now we're doing every other week. We're doing a show that aired about a year ago.
Oh, good.
So the ones that Kyle did, and he did
Yeah.
about 5 or 6, are airing right now every other week.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, so
you know,
his will be
Jim is
repeating here
working
soon.
On, the Congressional Medal of Honor Aggies. He's
Uh-huh.
doing a book, and I think A&M Press has just picked it up.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so he's really working hard right now.
Yeah.
well, I got quite involved with Attorney Leonard's story
Uh huh. Right.
because he was class of '42,
Right.
and
Right.
I never. The main connection was that, well, I was in the tank destroyers.
Mm-hmm.
So was Attorney Leonard. And I didn't really have much connection other than that we both served tank destroyers. Well,
Right.
that was, he was with the 893rd.
Yeah.
Well, so was I.
Yeah. Right.
But I didn't serve. I did serve in the 893rd,
Mm-hmm.
but that was after the war. And
You're in the 814
when
during the
I left the 893rd, and of course Attorney was long deceased by that
Mm-hmm.
time in the 90.
Well, he died during the war.
Yeah, it was. Well, you know, I'm not really all.
Well, you've got a little bit of
Well-
medication in your system, Daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're only talking 60 years ago.
I
maybe
got
60.
interested. I got interested in his being in his service during that period. In August, I mean,
This is
let's see. Well, anyway, I found his tour of duty, you know, that would. I'm trying to think.
Well, you ordered all of his files.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I found this through the Army records and all in Washington, and so it was deceased personnel files,
Mm-hmm.
and those had to be picked up through Washington rather
Right.
than the other than the files.
Yeah.
And so finally, I got a hold of the files,
Mm-hmm.
and it took me 2 or 3 years, I think, to finally get it.
Right.
And it showed the whole thing from the beginning up.
Wow.
And his mother had sent a lot of the files that she had.
Mm-hmm.
You know, her about her hair, his hair. You know, he found that.
Yeah.
She located did all that, and anyway, it all turned out.
But Jim has borrowed your files
Yeah.
to work on that chapter
Yeah.
of his book.
And it was about that thick.
That's
Jim
amazing.
got 'em.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
got the
When
whole
Daddy
thing.
was telling me
Yeah.
when he was able to find about the actual almost minute by minute when he died and what all happened was just incredible.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, there was a congressional investigation part of that through Senator Tom Connolly and Tiger Teague. And anyway, it all came out.
Yeah.
And so it's there. And Jim has done one of the other files. One is one of the soldiers with not airmen on that Ploesti raid, and so he's got quite a bit on that.
Yeah.
And I guess there's 7 Medal of Honor recipients.
Right.
And so he's got those files.
Right. Right.
And
yeah.
So it'll be quite a.
It'll be quite. When does he plan to finish it?
I think he will probably have most of the manuscript finished within the next few months. That's what he's trying to do. Because I know when we were talking last, we talked about the fact that A&M Press is so slow that it may be 2 years before the book is out, and he wanted it out pretty quick. So
right.
He's going to have to get it to him real fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's getting there. He's working awful hard on it.
Yeah.
So it'll be a good book. Daddy had almost finished your memoirs, right?
What?
You have almost finished your memoirs.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'm going to.
Well, you got through the early. You went from day 1 to you were almost through the war, right?
Yeah.
Well, we can write the rest of that, Daddy.
But you want it written right, though, don't you?
Yeah.
You'd prefer the truth, right?
Yeah, we're gonna write it our way.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. According to Ann and Karen,
That's it.
oh golly.
Well, like our extension director wanted to know what I'm doing now. I said, well, I wrote the version that the members of my battalion presented, and now I'm writing my version. I wrote their version. Now I'm writing my version.
Right.
And
But you've been working on that for a couple of years, haven't you, Daddy?
yeah,
Yeah.
quite a bit.
You've got quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Did you type it, or do you just talk it, or what do? Do you write it longhand, or?
I think it's all. You've got it all typed on the computer, right?
Right.
It's on
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my wife, Rosemary, she did all the computer work.
Right.
I did the longhand,
Yeah.
and so she had quite a job there.
What, reading and writing and.
Yes. In those, I don't know if you got to see the letters that he wrote home from the war. The handwriting was beautiful script.
Yeah.
But it changed within the course of a year.
Is that where you got your calligraphy from? Because I got that card you sent me.
Oh yeah.
And I thought,
Well,
wow.
I studied calligraphy for about 30 years, and that was something I was doing in Austin. But but Daddy's handwriting was beautiful. But I noticed that there's a letter from about December of 1944 that's beautiful script, Palmer style, and then the next letter is about a year later in January, or no, it might have been 2 years later, and his handwriting was still script, but it was a little backhand. And from that moment on, it kept changing. It was more backhand and more backhand. And and I think I'm the only one that can translate it now. It's getting a little bit.
I'll tell you,
a little harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like it was.
Well, I think the African tick bite fever took a toll on his small motor skills.
Yeah.
And so his handwriting wasn't that great before, and so that was really kind of hard to read now, but we managed.
Yeah.
But you did write all of your, you wrote all of your first book in longhand,
Yeah,
and Mommy saved all of that, and then she typed it in.
yeah.
But I think this one, though, aren't you right? You're not doing longhand. You're just typing it in. Mm-hmm.
Now remind me, you came home from Europe when? When did you come home from the war?
I came home in December of 45.
Of 45.
And see, I entered the Army in February of 44.
Mm-hmm.
43.
43.
43.
And I volunteered for the draft.
Right.
And that was when they were, well, you could volunteer for the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And I more or less went on. I didn't want to fool around.
Right.
I didn't want to, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
now what class was it, Daddy, that left en masse from A&M?
It was 41.
Was it 41?
Was it 41 and 42? Were there two classes there, weren't they?
Let's see, it's class of 43.
Okay. Yeah,
I
42
never
and
really got
43,
it
I think,
straight.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't remember.
But
Yeah.
I think they were brought in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they had to go through OCS.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
But Daddy, when you signed up to go into the military, did you go to the Army recruiter and sign up? Is that what you did?
well, I went to Lubbock, and I was inducted in Lubbock, and
I knew there's a reason I didn't like Lubbock.
yeah. And then I went to the let's see, Fort Sill,
Mm-hmm. In Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Right.
And one reason I went early, I wanted to get in the Air Corps,
Right.
and it didn't turn out that way. They sent me to Sill, and that's the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
And-
what I
and
remember. That
They
yeah.
they sent me to Fort Hood,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a replacement training center.
Right. Right.
Tank destroyer replacement center.
So, but you wanted to fly.
Yeah.
You wanted to fly.
Yeah, that's right.
You wanted to be a pilot. You wanted to fly bombers, or
And it just didn't work out that
Well,
way.
and your
why?
Your
Why? Did,
mom, yeah. Tell me about your mom taking you to go up in a plane.
My mother?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, my father was in the hotel business out at Big Spring,
mm-hmm.
the Crawford Hotel, and she took me out to the airport. Said, now there's a very famous person that's flying out of here. He's landing and he's taking off, and turns out it's Will Rogers.
Uh-huh.
And who I really didn't know at all
Right.
at that time.
Right.
And I was quite impressed with all that. And later, I found out it was Will Rogers,
Mm-hmm.
and that we flew. I didn't fly with Will Rogers, but he took made the trip, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
But did you go up in a biplane?
oh yeah, one of my first trips was in one of those flying jennies.
Yeah.
You call them. And we flew. And the way it was, my younger brother and my father, they flew.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little hesitant because that pilot, he had his boots on, you know, those old flying boots, and I said, "Oh, you got your boots on?" He said, "Yeah." He says, "That's to protect me from snakes." So I wasn't too interested in getting that plane, and I got in the plane, but then I think I jumped out. I don't think I flew, but my younger brother did.
Yeah.
He flew.
Yeah.
And my father, they took off.
Right.
And so that was my story.
That was.
One of the entries in your mother's book, the one that I typed up, was talking about her taking you and Bobby to see, one of the planes.
Well,
and
let's see, you're from Oklahoma originally?
No, I've always lived in Texas.
Well,
Yeah. My grandfather was, grew up in Chickasha. Yeah, Oklahoma.
Well, there was Oklahoma oil man
Uh-huh.
that, what was it? Anyway.
There wasn't Houston, was it?
Huh?
Was it Houston?
No, are you thinking of Houston Calvin?
No.
No.
No, he was a big oil man from Oklahoma and Big Spring. He flew out there. And anyway, I can't remember exactly. I had it all written down somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't put it all.
Well, in this book, Mother B talks about taking you and Bobby to see this trick, aerobatic, yeah. And she said, well, and of course the boys were little, Daddy and Bobby were little.
Yeah.
And she said, well, boys were too afraid to go up, but their mother did. She got in the plane and went. So she enjoyed that kind of.
Well, it was a time for flying, really.
Yeah.
And
the barnstorming days.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
barnstorming and pole sitters.
barnstormers.
Oh, and you had a pole sitter there, and was it Big Spring?
What?
Pole sitter at the hotel in Big Spring.
Oh, yeah. They do these funny things.
Uh-huh.
Well, we lived at the top of the hotel.
The hotel that your dad owned. Yeah.
And so this man that got on top of this flagpole, way up
On top of the hotel.
top of the hotel,
Uh-huh.
and my mother would reel up soup.
Uh-huh.
And so he had plenty to eat, and then they're ready to bring him down, and he had a little problem, anyway, it all worked out. They brought him down, put him in the ambulance,
Mm-hmm.
and they took him around the town square, and everybody followed him around,
Mm-hmm.
and then they put him in the furniture store.
Oh, right, in the window of the furniture.
In the window, and everybody, watched that.
But now, how did he earn money this way? Because it was depression, and it was a stunt to earn money.
Right.
So did he sell his story to the newspaper, or
Yeah.
did the furniture store pay him for
Yeah.
bringing customers or something?
Yeah, there were a lot of things going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out how that worked.
Yeah, one of the pictures
Yeah.
one of her scrapbooks shows Daddy and Bobby there with the poles that are doing, getting ready to get on the pole.
Yeah.
But see, then let's see. After I left Fort
Sill? Fort Hood?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went on to Camp Pope.
Right.
Yeah.
In Louisiana?
Yeah. That was a
Yeah.
place there and all maneuvers.
Right.
And it was more of the winter time and pretty cold. I'll tell you that Louisiana
Yeah.
is cold in the winter. And so then I went on to Camp Folk, then to Fort Devens.
Where's that?
That was in
Oh, I don't remember that.
well, I have it. It's all written down.
Was it west?
It's all written down, but I
Was
can't
that on
remember.
the East Coast, Daddy?
Yeah.
Before you shipped out?
Yeah, we shipped out from
Karen, where was that? We talked about it this weekend.
Where
let me see the book. Maybe I,
Well, that's okay, Daddy.
But you went to...
What was the place?
Where was it that, his hospice nurse is from the same area?
Oh,
where
in
he shipped out?
Massachusetts.
Yeah, it was one of the places there.
But you went over by boat?
yeah, we went on the Isle de France.
That's right. Which was a passenger ship, right? That was turned into a...
We
Yeah.
were-
Liberty ship or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that was 15,000. 15,000.
Right.
Was, the French liner had been taken over by the French,
Right.
and so they manned the ship.
Did y'all zigzag?
And,
Did it zigzag across, or did
yeah, and I assume we did because
it took a while?
yeah,
Yeah.
And of course a lot of rumors started out, that we were being followed by the submarines and all that, and but I don't think we were. And
I remember that picture that we used on the TV show that was also on the cover of the magazine. Is that right, or in the or in a book? It was
the
that
UVF magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what's that?
The picture of the
tank.
Dawn. It was on front of a book, the George Forty book.
Yeah, you were one of your tanks
Yeah.
Yeah.
with your head sticking up in the tank.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty
But
cool.
now I've got all this written down, but I can't recall it
Yeah,
right
well,
now.
but that's all right. That's all right.
But we got to we landed at in Scotland, and right away we ended up in England near Packington Park.
Right.
That was a place near Birmingham,
Right.
and that was quite a place. We all had not we all. I said I had a girlfriend there, and most of the fellows in my outfit were married, and they didn't pick up.
Well, Daddy, how long were you in that spot? I mean, to have a girlfriend, you got to be there more than 24 hours, I guess. But
Well, I don't know.
Well, about 3 months.
3 months, okay. Well, that's more sounds realistic. I think.
Yeah, and then they began to deal with the marshalling areas on the coast.
Right.
And I had a girlfriend down there.
I'm remembering all this now.
Yeah, you remember.
And one of them broke your heart, or
oh, that's Annie.
right? Annie. That's right.
Yeah, we talked to Annie pretty
and you. That's right. You still
well,
she's the one.
Holland, though.
That was Holland.
That was Holland.
Yeah.
We're this is fast forward 3 or 4 girlfriends to Annie, right?
Well, don't forget the one that wrote home to your mother. You stayed with her and her family before you shipped out.
Oh, I had a girlfriend in Chelmsford,
Massachusetts.
That's where Fort.
Yeah.
There,
Chelmsford,
there,
yeah.
and I dated this girl. Well, what they do, these girls would be shipped in, to the post.
USO,
and we have a dance, and it wasn't, nothing really serious. It was just we danced, and it turned out I didn't show up for one of the dances.
Yeah,
and the mother knew that I had shipped, and so she wrote my mother that he's gone. He's gone now. And she had my address and everything. And when I arrived in England at Packington Park, there was a letter from my mother there. And then so it all worked out.
Yeah. No, I remember about Annie, and y'all have become friends. Yeah, that was a great story.
Well, and we had tried for a while to get Annie to come here, or to even meet her halfway, and we just couldn't quite get it together. She has never flown.
I see.
And
she
was not interested in flying.
Yeah.
And so it would mean a cruise, which would be a little bit more difficult, more awkward. And I don't know that her health is that good right now either.
No.
She's in a retirement home.
In England or in Scotland? Or?
In Holland.
In Holland?
In Maastricht.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
we were there last year. Was it last? No,
year before last. You and Joanne.
Yeah.
Yeah. Daddy and my aunt went back to a battlefield tour. And they got to see Annie then.
Yeah. And we correspond still. Yeah.
Talked to her quite a bit, right after Mommy died, and then just before. She was calling pretty regularly, and we'd try to call her. And so I got to see Annie and Theo. I went to Europe one time and stayed with them for a few days, and then... but we had already met Theo because he had already been to Austin.
Yeah.
In the late, mid-70s, I guess, 76.
Yeah.
So, but just close family ties now. It's just like an extended family.
Yeah.
So, and when I was doing Daddy's scrapbook, his World War II scrapbook, and I asked for his dog tags because I wanted to put those in there, and so I was arranging them on the page and kind of tacking them down, and there's a little cross that's attached to his dog tags, and his daddy was looking through the work that I was doing on the book. He said, well, you know where that cross came from? And I said, no. He said, well, Annie gave that to me before I left. So he'd worn that on his dog tags all that time. Did you ever tell Mommy that?
Oh, yeah, I did. Well, the Dutch were very interested in us, and they appreciated what we did.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
And you could say the French were not quite that interested.
Appreciative.
Yeah, but everybody did their part. And
did you come in contact with many British military?
Village military? British?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We were with the British Second Army attached to them.
Right.
And we got to know them very well.
I've never talked to a veteran who served in Europe that hasn't come away with just a deep respect for the British and what they went through, with their own country being bombed, and and with the Royal Air Force, or whether they were ground or whatever, that if
right.
I don't know whether you knew Spec Gammon or not, but Spec was one that he went on and on about that.
The thing was the British didn't have the rations,
right,
such as we had,
yeah,
the pay that we had,
right.
And we were dating their girlfriend.
Yeah.
And this is the reason this girlfriend in Britain that I had, I got to leave back to Britain, and so I thought, well, I'll check my girlfriend. Well, it turned out she had married.
And that makes it difficult.
British.
Yeah, right.
And I told her, I said, well, you are married, and well, I rendezvoused with her at a pub with her mother-in-law. And I told her then, I said, well, I'm not going to stay in Edinburgh. I mean, I'm not going to stay in
England.
I'm going to Edinburgh. And she actually thought maybe she would go with me to Edinburgh, and I said no.
This is after she was married?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, I said no, you can't go. I'm going to Edinburgh. And
she'd made her decision, and
I did it kind of on the spot. And I said, this is not the way to live.
Yeah, well, so you.
And so I left next month.
There were enough single women you could break their heart. Much less breaking the heart of married women.
Yeah. But I can tell a better story one of these days.
Did you ever meet her husband? I hope he wasn't carrying a rifle or anything.
Yeah. I would fear the mother-in-law.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah. Well, you made the most of your war. I think you did. You know, you made the most of it. It sounds like, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. I just don't know. Well, it's a miracle that some of us survived.
Oh yeah.
But,
yeah. You, the enemy and boyfriends, that's right? Yeah.
Fighting on both fronts.
That's right. That's right. What was worse, the Germans or the British boyfriends?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I was single.
Yeah, I could tell.
18.
Oh yeah.
Cute,
good looking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were out of Big Spring.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
But the thing about Will Rogers Jr., he was part of the recon platoon.
Right.
He was he managed first platoon.
Right.
Of recon.
So
the 814.
Right. So you served with him, right?
I served with him.
That's right, because I remember in the show, there was a picture of him that you had, because I remember him when he did his TV shows and all of that. Yeah.
And
yeah.
Of course, we were all interested because these fellows in the 814th, they all knew Will Rogers.
Right.
They were up in their.
Right.
Most of them were in their 30s. Many of them were.
Right.
And a lot of them, some from Oklahoma, and they want to know all about him, how he looked like his father, all that.
Yeah.
And
he didn't look a lot like his father at all. No. Maybe a little bit, but not a lot. Yeah. As I recall.
But I got something that really disconcerting. When you get that it's a paperback. I mean.
Your 8/14 book?
No, it's
the magazine article?
Magazine article that I copied from, what's her name?
Not sure. Where is it, Daddy?
It's next to the
is it next to your
computer?
Next to your computer?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a yellow sheet.
Okay.
Barbara Walters.
Okay.
I'll tell you, things look strange.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I happened to, in my article that I wrote about, I copied from Barbara Walters.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in touch with Andy Rooney.
Mm-hmm.
And he had written that Andy Rooney was a writer for Will Rogers Jr. During the 50s, and that what's her name was Barbara Walters was his assistant writer, and this was in the 50s, and it's pretty bad.
You want me to read it? Can you read it?
Let me see if I can read it.
Okay.
And so it was, as in 1955, that I got another job in television. Now this is Barbara writing. That this time at the CBS as a writer on the year-old The Morning Show. That was New York. My job was to write and phone and produce. The secretary, here, you better read.
You want me to try it? Okay. I'll see if I can decipher it. Okay, my job was to write and produce segments, monthly fashion shows, using live models, which would help attract women viewers. There was no thought of my appearing on television. The only on-camera job for a woman then was as weather girl. This is not to say the morning show did not have its share of talent, even if they were Homo sapiens. A young Walter Cronkite and Charles Collingwood would be first co-hosts with, gosh, Daddy, Olympics broadcasts, and with World of Sports legend Jim McKay doing the sports reports. By the time I arrived, Collingwood had been replaced by the actor Dick Van Dyke, who would go on to win 3 Emmys for his own long-running TV series with Mary Tyler Moore. In 1955, Dick was up against it at CBS. We all were. Replacing Dick Van Dyke with Will Rogers Jr. and renaming the show Good Morning did not help. While Jr. had an easy smile and familiar, twangy voice of his favorite cowboy humorist columnist entertainer father, he didn't have his father's common touch, or any touch at all. Behind his back, we added a clause to Will Rogers Jr.'s famous quote that he'd never met a man he didn't like, that is, until he met his son. Will Jr. didn't have his father's humor either, despite the efforts of his young writer, a fellow named Andy Rooney. Even Andy couldn't instill much spontaneity into Will, but every bit of wit or wisdom he uttered came out of Andy's typewriter. Not long after Good Morning folded. And this is from Audition, a Memoir. Barbara Walters, Alfred A. Knopf, New York, 2008.
Yeah, that's from her book. Yeah,
her book.
Yeah, I see.
And
well, I've heard that he wasn't a really well-liked guy, that Will Rogers was.
I'm in touch with that.
Yeah.
Will Rogers Memorial. Quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so I'm debating about whether to say, now this is what happened here. That this woman badmouthed Will Rogers Jr. Well, I'm not sure I'll do it, but if I ever get my wits about me. Yeah.
Well, she's on record. I mean, it's.
Yeah, there's a lot about her.
Yeah.
And she's done a lot, I think, she badmouthed herself.
Yeah, I was going to say she didn't do a lot for her own character.
Right.
Yeah. But when I was up there in, July of 93, well, I visited the librarian, which we'd been in touch and all, and she wanted to hear more about the story and all. And we talked about Will Jr. quite a bit. And it so happened, Jimmy Rogers, the younger brother, showed up. He wanted to know what I was doing, what I was up to. And I said, well, I wanted to visit with Will Jr. And this, the younger brother. And so he wanted to know what my connection was, and I said, well, Will Jr. was in my company, and I knew him fairly well, and but I didn't really know. I did know Junior, and in fact, Junior and I had visited once in Los Angeles, and we were on the plane, and he was getting off in El Paso. I was getting off. No, he was getting off in El Paso. I was getting off in El Paso, and he was getting off in Tubac.
Yeah.
He was going on down south where he had his ranch.
Right.
And so anyway, I called Will Jr. and told him we're having our reunion, and that he should come to the reunion. He said, yeah, I got your letter, but it said I'm going to the function of the Will Rogers Folly that is being held in New York City, and would not be able to be there.
Yeah.
And so Will Jr., well, then it was that Will Jr. said that he was not interested in Will Rogers Jr.'s military career. For some reason, he said, I'm not interested in all that. And I tell you a few things, but I'm just not interested. Well, he said, now do you want to ask me any questions about Will Jr.? And by that time, I was kind of irritated, and I said, no, I guess I'm not too interested either in your story. But I found out later he was a Marine. He did serve. And But there are a lot of things that just didn't work out.
Why did you not get to be a flyer? What was
with Will?
No. Why did you not get to? You said you wanted to fly.
I went because
you just had to go where they sent you, or
well, the first sergeant
yeah
of my company,
right,
that I was in basic training.
Yeah,
he said, "You fellows this volunteered, and you wanted to fly." Said, "You're not going to get to fly because we've got other plans. You're gonna go out for other places."
Yeah,
and that happened to be the tank destroyers.
Right.
And I didn't.
Yeah,
that was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in the Army now.
And it happened with others as well.
Right.
Yeah. And so, and I guess I wouldn't have made a very good pilot. My brother, here's the thing about it. Here my brother gets in the Navy, Naval Air Corps.
Uh-huh.
And he ends up in all these places, you know, Corpus and one thing and another.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets his wings.
Right.
But he gets them just as the war ends. And so he didn't really get to fly in combat all that much.
Mm-hmm.
But he did fly. He was in Okinawa for about a year.
I see.
And,
I see. What did he fly?
Oh, TBMs.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he had his experience, all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
my mother's first husband, who was killed in the war, he flew. He was a Navy instructor, pilot, and he was killed actually during a training mission. One of his students clipped his rudder, and he went in. But he flew Hellcats, F-6F Hellcats by Grumman, those. So he was a Navy pilot.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it, my brother named Boykin.
Uh-huh.
Well, some Japanese came over to visit the Federal Reserve Bank in Dallas, and my brother was with the Federal Reserve Bank, named Boykin, and he had him tabbed as the Japanese had him tabbed as Boyington.
Oh.
Pappy Boyington.
Pappy Boyington.
And they thought my brother was Pappy Boyington. And I think they finally got it settled. It was quite a little go-round there.
I always try to get a feel for, I mean, of all the veterans that I've talked to, I try to really get a feel for what it was like. I mean, to wake up every day for a certain period of your life, and knowing that you were involved in a war, that there was somebody out there that wanted to kill you, and and hope every day that wasn't the day that they'd find you, or and
well, I've just finished reading a book about the Pacific. And Max Hastings.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with his?
No, I'm not.
Well, he wrote one about the war in the Pacific and also in Germany.
Right.
A British, and a wonderful writer.
Right.
And so I was quite taken with that phase of the war.
The different enemy. I mean, the Japanese and the Germans were totally different ideologies.
And they had to kill the Japanese.
Right, right.
They couldn't take them prisoners.
No, because they were fight to the death. They had that mentality. They would,
And this is the sad part, very, very sad part of the war.
Right. Whereas the young German soldiers, they were just as you know, they were just as scared as you were. I mean,
Right.
they were, you know, they didn't want to, you know, they didn't want to die either.
Not necessarily there by choice.
Right, exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And they, well, they just died on purpose.
Right.
They'd rather die than to be a prisoner.
Right.
And
Exactly.
All about losing face.
yeah, that's right. So it was a bad
Yeah.
situation.
Because there weren't in Europe. I mean, there weren't suicide pilots in Europe,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they weren't. They didn't.
No.
They didn't.
They wanted to live as much.
Yeah,
as
they
anybody
wanted to
else.
live. They didn't. You didn't have to worry about planes crashing into your tank.
Yeah.
You know, on a suicide mission
Right.
like is in
That's right.
in the Pacific.
Yeah.
Uh,
So it is a
Yeah.
completely different war.
right. Totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and that's why the people that. Now, I guess when the war ended in Europe, were you one of the ones thinking that maybe you'd have to go to Japan? And then the war ended in Japan and
training.
Right. Oh,
in Germany.
to go west, to go to the
back.
Pacific. Yeah,
And,
yeah, for a ground war. Yeah,
Wasn't in the mood really.
yeah, one in the mood,
It
right?
was kind of yeah.
Uh huh.
Yeah, we were dreading going back,
Oh yeah.
and I don't know whether you remember Tom. Let's see. He was in the Animal Science Department, and he flew a plane, a bomber.
Mhm.
I believe, yeah. And he went back to Japan,
Mhm.
and he was shot down over Japan.
Mhm.
And one of his plane, went down. He lost his crew,
Yeah.
and you wrote a book about his experience there. Where see two of his pilot crew went down and bailed out, but didn't survive. The rest of them survived and went to prisoner war camp in Japan.
Right. Right.
And where were they posted? They were posted in Hiroshima and
Right.
Nagasaki.
Right. Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. That was.
Yeah. And
That was. Well, I know. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah,
Because, and were they executed?
yeah. Were not executed. They were just killed.
They
when
were
the bomb
killed when the
fell.
bomb went off. That's right.
That's right.
Because I remember what you're talking about being part of a documentary that President Bush was involved in.
Yeah, yeah.
That 41 was involved
yeah.
involved in because I remember that now.
Anyway, Tom has been back.
What's Tom's last name? I'm trying to. But he's an Aggie, right?
Huh?
He
I've got his book
Yeah.
back there somewhere.
yeah.
You know what it's called? There were just a few books back then. Remember the name of the book, Daddy?
But what was it? An A&M Press book? Was it an Aggie Press
No,
book?
it was Austin book.
Oh, Elkins? Elkin?
Yeah, Austin. You know those people.
As an Austin publisher, right?
Yeah,
Oh.
and it's Eakin.
Eakin
Press.
Eakin Press.
Yeah.
Well, Eakin Press they published a book about that had the story about my mother's Tom Cartwright.
That's
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
That's right.
His son was at Consolidated with us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I talked to him. Is he still alive?
He lives in Arizona.
Right. I talked
Or Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I talked to him because he came. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. I actually talked to him on the telephone and did an interview, and I had it on the radio. about the book, because I think he came here to lecture about the book about 5-6 years ago, something like that. Because I remember talking to him on the phone.
Yeah.
I did a phone interview with him. Right.
Well, I called him. It happened to be on about the day they dropped the bomb. I mean, you know, anniversary.
Right.
And so, and I'd worked with Tom a little bit, but he has mixed emotions about all that, as you could imagine.
Right. I remember when I talked to him. I remember that. Yeah.
And
Tom, did you ever talk to Horace Schaefer?
No.
He was principal at the junior high here for years, and he taught junior high and was a tennis coach, I think. At Consolidated, and it's his daughter-in-law, Cheryl Clements.
Oh, okay. Who's doing the
And she said that he is not willing to talk, but you never know. I mean, you might just have a just click with him, and I'm wondering if he will come to the Worth Remembering event. If he does, that might be a good chance to connect with him.
Right.
But he was, is it CID?
who?
I'm talking about Horace Schaefer.
Horace? Well, I'm not up on that.
No, but what was the intelligence?
Oh,
Was it CID?
CID.
Yeah, that's what he was. And he has been very paranoid about Cheryl doing this event.
Oh, really?
He just didn't think it was a good idea at all because he was afraid of repercussions. I don't know. It's just interesting. But Tom is going to participate in the Worth Remembering event, the reading, of letters and written works and things like that.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of response from the newspaper article
Did
that I
you?
wrote.
Well, was it all good response?
Yeah.
See, and that's what I would expect.
A lot of good response
people.
from that, and
Good.
about that. Matter of fact, the lady with the DAR emailed me last week and said they were gonna recognize me and give me an award for that and for all the veteran stuff that
There
I've
you
done.
go.
So that's kind of neat.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. Yeah. Calvin, I got to go. I got to be on the radio in about 35 minutes.
I've messed you all up.
No, you haven't messed me up at all. I wish I could just stay here all night.
This problem I've had here.
Yeah.
I had shingles and then.
Shingles. Where'd you have your shingles?
Well, he had when he had that cancer surgery, it was here.
Yeah.
And shingles came right after that, all over here.
I had shingles. For a while. It came out of my forehead, right down towards my eye.
Yeah.
Oh, that's painful.
Boy, it is.
Oh,
and
man.
I still have them.
Oh, yeah. My father-in-law does and still has it. There's still pain involved. But I was fortunate, I guess, and my pain lasted about 3 or 4 weeks, but it was 3 or 4 weeks of hell. It was really, really painful.
Yeah.
Well, if you read the book is more up to date than what I am now.
That's all right.